Hello, everyone, and welcome to, I guess, the fourth episode of Season 3 of Facecheck, but Week 1 of the LCS Regular season. We had ourselves the beginning of our triple single round robin, I guess is that how that works, where it's 3 days a week. There was a lot of games, 15 matches to keep up with, a lot of upsets, and we're here to break down all the action. Myself, Dom, and LS. Guys, how are you doing? How's your weekend? Did you win money on the Super Bowl? Did you even watch LS?
I watched the last 13 minutes. There was some guy that was streaming it on Twitch while simultaneously having a pornographic image up.
How many viewers did he have? How many viewers did he have?
He had 450 at his peak. But he made it the whole way. I got to honestly listen. The photo was a little distracting, but I got to finish watching the Super Bowl, so
All right. So now we know what type of streams LS watches in his spare time. Cool. Good to know.
Man, it wasn't even like 30 seconds of us being on before all of a sudden we're controversial again. I have to worry about us getting banned. Tom, how was your day?
It was good. I mean, I was one of the few people that made it through the CLG TSM game. You know, LS almost died from it. He,
I flatlined at the end.
His heartbeat monitor was completely not readable anymore. So I made it through that series. I gotta make the most out of co-streaming now because I had quite a long break from it. Since last summer.
How was the return? Was it everything you expected? Was it more?
It was way more than I expected because I assumed that my viewers were just gone because it was so long without being able to co-stream. It felt like if you wanted to watch co-streams, like you would just have gone to LS, Double F, Sneaky, Meteos. Like Mo was doing it
again.
Yeah, he is. Voi's doing it. Yeah, so like all these people that were doing it, I was just like, okay, I'm just screwed. Like I can't compete for 7 months. So it was so crazy to me to see like people, like that my numbers just came back, like, and that people were just enjoying the co-streams again. It was amazing.
Sure. For sure. Well, congratulations. Welcome back. I had a question for you, but let's take a look at the overall rankings.
Wait, what is that?
Week 1.
dGon cutting out a little bit.
Yeah, dGon, what happened, man? You get into my stash or what happened?
No. He was cosplaying. Listen. He was cosplaying CLG.
Okay, all right.
To the end there.
Is that what happened? My bad.
That's what happened. Yeah.
That was my joke, basically. Let's take a look at the standings after Week 1 as we take a look at our teams here. I don't know what happened to that one. All right. Well, Cloud9, 100 Thieves on top there with Evil Geniuses and Team Liquid tied at 2-1. And then we've got the 5 team stuck at 1-2 with CLG last in red. What were some of the big takeaways after this first week of action, yo?
Well, I think that one thing that I want to say is like CLG, they're not quite able to do things. They're not able to get these wins, but they're having a pretty decent early game so far. So when they get the experience of a world championship finalist coming into the jungle, he's going to be able to lead them to victory. Like you can tell that this team is just going to be a top team by the end of the split. Like their early games are there. You just get that experience. You get that world finalist in there, an EU LEC champion. Like how could you not win with this team? I mean, this I was so impressed with what they're able to do without their star player.
Well, I mean CLG. So the really interesting thing about CLG is that they realistically should have won 2 of their games and then they didn't, which is. I feel more confident that CLG's problems are actually more fixable than something, say, like TSM.
I think so.
In that regard, and that's a very scary thing to actually say. I mean, I made a lot of tweets about TSM. TSM so far in LCS, I mean, obviously committing a robbery against CLG, but even in the lock-in tournament, they committed like DB Cooper level robberies several times throughout the event, right? And it's just absolutely insane. So. Had a series of tweets on them yesterday. I mean, we'll talk about it later on. Cloud9, obviously, with the strong start. I think that one's to pretty much be expected. But Immortals had the massive upset over Team Liquid. And that's pretty big. especially because TL just came right off the lock-in win. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think that was super surprising, right? Like just seeing how Revenge was able to play the lane phase. Like, I don't know about picking Kennen blind, like, or maybe the Kennen was picked into Aurelia. No, I think it was a Kennen blind and Aurelia counter, right? So I don't know about that matchup. I feel like if you're in it, especially on 11.2, probably need an arm guard earlier in that lane. Like the Sork boot seemed kind of strange from Alfari. But I mean, you have to give credit to Revenge for playing so well in that game. I mean, he really popped off. Yeah, but one thing I was thinking about is, like the next two games for him weren't the best, but how much does that actually matter when you have such a good first impression in the actual split? It feels like if you pop off first and then you start playing poorly afterwards, just the community will be so far behind you, like the push will be there, that it gives you a bit of a buffer where he has, maybe a couple more weeks of inting that he can do before people will start to like question his play.
And that's what I was going to say. Did this set up like false expectations for him or buy him time? And it seems like, in your opinion there,
I think it just
popping off. Freak, right? I think Freak was on the call, like rightfully so, because no one expected that to happen. You like shouted him out multiple times and he dominated. So like even those that don't know Revenge or know his background other than, hey, look, he's a rookie, will now have this insane opinion of him. And then if you look at the other games where it's like, oh, he's playing Ivern, like he's not supposed to pop off, like against Golden Guardians, like then that feels like a wash game.
He butchered that lane though. Like that level 1 into like not TPing, he ruined the lane. Like I know that I was meme tweeting about it a little bit. I was like, oh, it's like Ivern's supposed to be down 50 CS and lose 5 plates in this matchup. And like it was so funny because people would just like respond like, this is such results oriented analysis, Dom. I expected more out of you. I'm like, I'm joking, motherfuckers. Like literally you could be playing like whatever champion top. You could be playing Rel top and you're not supposed to lose 5 solo plates and 50 CS in matchups. Like that's just never an actual thing that should happen. But I felt like his early laning felt like he just hadn't had much experience on the champion. Like, so he W started, he put like 3 brushes down, level 1, like in the enemy brushes for vision. He took like auto trades randomly. And then like it felt like he wasn't willing to just take the L and at least do what's necessary to recover his lane. Like after he had that horrible trade, sure, Niles gets the slow push into the cheetah recall, whatever. I feel like then, once Niles had the freeze, he had to TP. He had to TP because he knew Olaf wasn't there. He had to TP and break that freeze, or else he's just doomed for the rest of the lane phase. Because he didn't TP, I feel like it just went so far south for him. And the other thing is, when you're playing against a Gangplank, I don't think there's a reason that you need to be so worried about the GP having TP advantage. Like, GP doesn't want to TP out of lane anyway. Like, he normally will just use his ult to contribute to, like, map plays. So I thought that it was really where the Revenge didn't try to like salvage that lane at all. He just accepted such a fat L.
I guess I want to comment on the lane because I think a lot of people, especially like on Reddit or anyone that watches the episode, they're not going to understand. But Ivern's favored against Gangplank. And I know that I like type 2 on Twitter, like what ends up happening. But basically, Ivern level 1, there's a brush trick that you can do to actually have 4 brushes instead of just 3. That's something that maybe if people don't regularly play Ivern, they won't know about it. They won't know how to do it. But he can start the lane with 4 brushes, and then he can have a big brush in the lane. And then basically level 1, you just don't fight GP. And then once you're level 2, you abuse LOS, line of sight, because Gangplank has a target on his Q. And then because you have E, Gangplank can never barrel. So he can never actually reliably get pushed, but then you're a ranged champion, which makes it really hard for GP to get any of his like traditional advantages against you. And then at level 6, what ends up happening is Ivern actually has really, really powerful solo kill potential on GP with Daisy. And not actually in that game, Revenge had a solo kill on Niles, but neither of them realized it. Niles actually pushed up past the point of lethal, extended into a trade, and then Revenge still didn't pull the trigger. Like that one was really weird. But Ivern's actually one of the few champions that's favored against Gangplank in top lane. So just throwing that out there for people who watch that game and like meme the pick.
Well, yeah. I mean, because I didn't fully understand it, so thanks for that breakdown. So just for Cliff Peepo notes, it's abuse line of sight, don't fight at level 1, but get 4 bushes, and then kill potential at level 6. Yes, got it. Right? Everyone got it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool.
There you go. You know.
And then just for context on the player himself for Revenge, been around for a while, was on was it Dignitas
FlyQuest
Academy? FlyQuest Academy was a Riven one trick, which is why I got confused with Viper. He was a Riven one chick. So seeing him pull out Agragas, see him play Ivern, I think bodes well. His attitude seems well. So, but they're 1-2, and as Dom said, has kind of messed up a couple times, but the leeway of solo killing Alfari for the first blood of the regular season. With that, what were some other teams that we also sitting at that 1-2 range that I think stick out to you guys as like maybe a little more hopeful than the record shows up?
I think the only other one would be FlyQuest potentially. What was FlyQuest week again? They played against TSM first, and then who were their other games against? I think that their week wasn't particularly easy. So, at least I remember their games they weren't supposed to be favored in. So like I feel like they're probably better than their record indicates. They played against EG. I remember Licorice got solo killed by Impact level 2, just kind of troll. But in general, I think that's
TSM and then TL.
Yeah, and then TL. Okay, so they had to play EG, TL, and those are their 2 losses. I feel like that's a lot more acceptable than some of the other teams. So I mean, like you look at TSM for example, right? Like TSM got like C9, and then they got smacked by FlyQuest, and then they should have lost to Counterlogic Gaming as well. So like they didn't even play. They didn't even have a hard strength of schedule, and they're 1-2. I feel like that's why TSM is getting so much hate. Is these are teams that you'd expect them to beat. I mean, literally, Sword Art gets paid more than the entire FlyQuest lineup. Like, so like, I feel like at that point you just need to be able to pull out some of these victories. But yeah, I mean, I think FlyQuest has a chance at being good. I think it just really comes down to how stable Licorice could be in the top lane. I think on Cloud9 he had a lot of leeway to lose lanes, and you know there was a whole meme about when Licorice gets solo killed in lane, that's when I knew Cloud9 had won the game, because he would always get solo killed once and then he'd end up like making a big TP flank or something and be relevant in the game afterwards. But when you're playing on a bad team, you don't have that leeway. Like you don't have other options in the game. You actually have to lane well, and you need to be stable and not get behind without the enemy team investing resources into your lane. So if you're playing Camille into the Shen and you get solo killed level 2 and you're on a team like FlyQuest, you're not going to have the opportunity to come back into it. In a lot of games. So I feel like this team is really just it's on Licorice's shoulders. I think Jose actually looked really good. I think Jose's pathing and stuff, he looks like he's definitely going to be a top 5 jungler in the league. I'm just worried about if the other lanes can keep up and like actually lane into these teams that have, you know, the top tier laners in the league. So when you have Licorice against Impact, did not look good. When he plays against Someday, when he plays against when he plays against Alfari, that's the big one. How's he gonna do when he plays against the rookies that actually have like potential to pop off but that are super raw? Revenge, Niles, how does he look there? Like if he can solidify himself as like a top 3 top laner, I think this team could easily be like probably like 4th, 5th around there. If not, I feel like they're gonna be fighting for like that 6th seed with TSM.
Are we?
I mean, yeah.
I was going to say, are we low on that bot lane of Diamond and Johnson? Because, again, we were pretty high on Johnson when he was on Dignitas. He did have all of the wisdom experience of Alpha Moon behind him, but that team wasn't great, and Johnson was still able to carve out a place for him. And now it kind of, is it, hey, the other lanes are doomed, so they don't get to play the game? Or, you know, how do we feel about their progress as a relatively young bot lane duo?
I'm worried about Diamond personally. You can respond to us.
No, I mean, yeah, Diamond looks extremely worrying in the gameplay. It actually, and I mean, it feels bad to say this, but like I get the same vibes when I watch like Joey. You know, anyone that's been watching, I mean, I feel bad saying it, you know, but it's like it's just such a glaringly obvious like weakness that just stands out, and it's obviously detrimental. And for like Licorice right now, I don't even know if he's top 5 in terms of top laners. I mean, Niles. So Niles is like one of those narratives right now that's like really weird, where it seems like pro players and people on Twitter, right, are against like the idea that's being put forth elsewhere, on like Reddit, you know, Twitter analysts, and then like on the broadcast, right? Because we don't get to see a lot of the laning phases, and then, you know, KDAs and all this other stuff and yada
Right.
yada yada. Niles is doing exceptionally well overall. Like if you count lock-in tournament forward, Revenge as well, lock-in tournament forward, barring that Ivern game. So they're both doing phenomenally well, and I think that they have a lot more upside. So FlyQuest being 1 and 2, I mean, I think it's worrying, but I do think they'll end up middle of the pack. I mean, I think the most worrying 1 and 2s right now are probably, I mean, it's Dignitas and TSM.
Yeah,
Dignitas and TSM, I mean, they're going to be the most volatile. And what kind of a world are we living in where Counter Logic Gaming at 0 and 3 looks better than both of them?
Yeah,
Which
I mean,
is something's going on.
It's really hard to talk about CLG because what they're doing well at right now is not even like what I feel like their strength should be. Like when you look at a team that's a bunch of veterans like this, they should theoretically be good at closing out games, have a good idea of how to play the game throughout it, and then the early game should be something that will be like contentious. But they're actually doing well early game, but it seems like they have no concept of how to close, and I just don't know how this happens when you have so many veterans on the team. Like this is like people have this mentality that Wiggly's a young player, right? Like, or like he's still on the younger side, right. But dude, this is his 3rd year in LCS at this point, right? Like if you're a 3rd year veteran, Wild Turtle has been in LCS since I was in LCS, dude. Like same thing for like Smoothie, right? Like Smoothie was even on one of my teams. So like the fact that this team can't figure out how to play proper macro in a lot of situations is worrying. But the only saving grace, like I know I was kind of memeing about Broxa coming over. The only saving grace is I think that Broxa, even though he generally was not the most like aggressive pather, I don't think that he's gonna make the massive like int paths that Wiggly does. Like I don't, because the things that happen to Wiggly, it feels like he just randomly tries to make like an aggressive play out of nowhere, and it screws over the entire game. So the game that we have up here, the CLG versus TSM game, were you watching Wiggly's pathing in that game LS where he went red side? He went red side on Udyr, completed his red side, and then he just walked into the enemy blue side where he knows the Olaf most likely has started there. So he ends up being so far behind on his clear, he just loses 1 minute out of nowhere. And because then he's pathing like in this weird way, his camps are spawning in weird orders, he's no longer able to control Dragon. So like the way that CLG is supposed to win this game is you're not going to win team fights versus a Moonstone Lulu later on, right? Like that the whole point of the champion is that like it'll be able to buff the 80s carry, buff whoever on the team that's strong, and it makes them really powerful in team fights. And the counterplay to that is being able to play side lanes. So CLG had the ability to do that with Camille throughout most of the game. I mean, eventually, once Azir has like 4 or 5 items, he can obviously control the side lane or play the side lane against Camille. But the problem was that CLG just gave this free soul like win condition to TSM by losing the first 2 drags that TSM has no business getting. Yeah. Like if you're running Xayah, Leona bot lane into Thresh Aphelios and the enemy team has Udyr, I don't think that you get any chance to get those first 2 Drakes. Like the Aphelios Thresh should just have pushed the entire time. So it's so criminal that TSM actually gets to get their Drake win condition in this game without drafting for prio bot side and playing a jungle matchup that's like even to losing early.
I mean, there's a couple things. One, the most important thing I'd like to point out, okay, before I dive into like Griffin's pathing and all the other stuff, is the graphic that we currently have. I think it's really impressive that even here, Finn is choosing still not to participate. So before, I just wanted to throw that one out there. But no, yeah, I think that obviously the 3rd dragon one was really erroneous. They went for 2 turrets instead of like contesting the 3rd dragon. That one was really, really weird. But they were still in a winning game state when they ended up winning the next couple of dragons, right? Denying a soul point. They were still definitely winning. And then Finn, like, I mean, there was the game from the day before where Finn, I actually tweeted it out, I believe. Finn had the game won. There's a Nocturne Paranoia where the enemy AD carry can't see, right? Short-sighted. And Finn can just flash body slam and
yes.
the AD carry.
Yes.
And he doesn't go for it. And it is the weirdest thing where I just don't know what's happening. Also, Finn had the game in the game when Zoe goes for the teleport. All Finn has to do is just press R on Azir. He doesn't actually need to go for the E because you press the R on Azir and then Zoe will get the bubble. 100% of the time, Zoe will get the bubble. So if that ends up happening, you win the game there as well. So there's like these really weird turn your brain off moments that it feels like almost anyone should be able to make, and he's not making it. And I don't know what's going on. But
Yeah, there was also
is,
that flank TP in like the third dragon where I think they win the whole game if he just doesn't stopwatch instantly. Like he E's over the wall, they're all like 1 HP. And he ults, and then he insta stopwatches at full life when they have no CC, nothing on top of him. Where if he just lives that, that's probably Dragon and Baron. I mean, there was 2 times in this game where CLG had Dragon and Baron, and they just like chased for kills, or they made like a weird misplay, or they just decided to like push a turret instead. Where I feel like these should just be shot calls that every pro player is willing to make. Like, you know, when you win a fight that hard, it's like, all right, take Baron, take Dragon, just fucking reset on the map. And especially when you have a team comp like they have with Finn playing Camille that can play side lane, the Lulu will never be able to match him. If you get Baron, the game's just completely fucking over. So I don't know. I thought it was weird.
Everything was just really strange. I mean, the fact that they're all winning though is so bizarre. For if you're a TSM fan, I mean, I had those chain tweets on TSM. Things look really bad there, obviously. And on the topic of like if Broxa comes in, I don't know if I share the sentiment that Broxa won't just make these like random aggressive things, because I feel like Broxa flips a ton. And we saw what Broxa did when all of his lanes are winning, still managed to be invisible. And while CLG is like having some winning lanes here, I don't know. I'm envisioning like these like really weird things where he's gonna like go for like needlessly forced ganks that require opponents to totally blunder, and then nothing happens, then he falls behind, and then I don't know. But
I feel like he'll be able.
He's a really nice. Hey.
He's nice. Yeah, he's nice. But I also think that like his preferred playstyle kind of works well with like what people are doing these days, where you're literally like full clearing on cooldown, super basic into Dragon. I feel like he's just generally the type of person that like he's comfortable with that type of playstyle. I just don't understand why Wiggly feels the need to make things happen when he already has an advantage. Like if you're Udyr versus Olaf in the early game and you're playing on blue side and you have a stronger bot lane, you should just be completely happy to start your blue buff. Like, you're not going to... Ganking the Lulu, sure, you might be able to get a gank off, but Finn could completely play that lane out by himself. Like, you should fall behind in lane. It's Camille versus Lulu, but he could take Fleet Footwork, Second Wind, Doran Shield, and you can just chill in the lane, and he can just play towards his bot lane, Thresh Affiliates, and they can just get that buffer where they no longer will be forced to team fight once their team comp falls off. So I feel like Broxa won't int pathing that hard. Like, I don't remember him ever griefing his pathing that hard for like an invade. He doesn't seem like the type of jungler that would like try to invade and like get a camp advantage as much as the type of jungler that would like maybe try to like get a gank off that doesn't do anything, which I feel like won't be as punishing in this meta.
I have one thing just ingrained and burned into my memory. I remember arguing with Loco about it, right? Where you went into Pro View and Broxa like sees the opponent finish the Gromp. He's pathing to the Gromp to like try to smite steal it, right? Sees the guy finish the Gromp and then keeps going into the Gromp. And then it's not a good series of events. But I remember Loco like trying to defend it, that he just might not have seen the Gromp, but like the Pro View shows that he sees the Gromp. So it's like, it's really weird. But I don't know. I mean, sometimes he does these things and it just doesn't make any sense. But I feel like Worlds is like, I don't know. But also, when does he even get here? There's only 5 weeks of LCS.
Yeah, true.
Right? And he's had zero scrim practice. I mean, they might just end up running Griffin the entire time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and just be like, hey,
yeah,
this is our spring split. I mean, this is very similar to the same situation that Broxa had on Team Liquid, where the season started. They rolled with the Australian god himself, Surenfire, the biggest bully ever, to bully everyone in the lane, and then tried to come in and fix the chemistry afterwards. Didn't quite work out for them. So basically making the point that maybe Wiggly is starting to push a little bit too hard, because this is his chance, while Broxa is still in Visa hell, to try and impress someone, elongate his career, right?
I mean, I just don't think I don't think that this is the situation where you'd play your academy jungler for longer, because they're already 0-3, right? Like, why not just take the chance of like, even let's say they come in 2 weeks, and for some godforsaken reason CLG at the end of 2 weeks is like 2-7, right? They get 2 wins. Even if you're 2-7, won't you still just play Broxa your starter and just hope that he's able to get you into playoffs? Like, if you're not in playoff contention already and you're losing all these games in random ways, I feel like you should just go for the Yeah, the person that you're
Hail
actually
Mary.
spending your money on. Yeah,
Right.
why not?
The
Right.
the question that I had was the move that was made not because of visas, but just out of coaching staff decision. Pobelter getting benched for RJ, and RJ was, I think, looked good. Like he looked good, had the solo kill in the mid lane, or not the solo kill, but crazy outplay with the roam from Smoothie to come help him out and get first blood against TSM on Sword Art. Was in position to carry several of those games, and I would say it wasn't the reason why they lost, which is definitely something that not all rookies could say. Fudge wasn't able to say that early on. Niles also.
I mean, he did make like a
difficulty happening.
game-defining misplay.
Yeah,
He did.
He solo lost the Baron at Raptor Camp.
Yep.
He solo lost the Baron there, and then I think there was another moment where he solo lost it, and then in the series before that one, he also solo lost it.
Yeah.
So he made some divine blunders.
All I know is
games.
All I know is if you are LS's friend, you better hope you never get an LCS or LEC or LS is gonna fucking.
It's all over. Yeah, it's all over.
Jesus
Definitely.
Christ.
You know.
I mean, I feel like he was
He had to name change. He's trying to run.
yeah, he's trying to run.
It's not
the only one on that team name changing and trying to run.
So, I mean, one thing I wanted to say is I wonder how much teams actually were able to like do research and prep against him, because I feel like he's the type of player, like my interpretation of this guy is his Zoe is much better than the rest of his champions. He kind of reminds me of like Vedio from Misfits when I watch LEC, where like this guy is so much better at Zoe than everything else. So why would you even leave it up or give him like the chance to pick it? You know, like I thought his TF game was all right, but I don't think it's as good as his Zoe. Like his Zoe is his main champion. I mean, he was ranked 2 pretty much one tricking this.
So some background on RJS. He came out to Korea. I think it was like early 2018 or maybe it was late 2017. He came out to Korea. He used up basically all of his money in order to like keep staying out here. Played at a PC bong like 18 hours a day. Maintained Challenger without dropping back into Grandmaster or Master for 6 months straight on Korea. But yeah, Zoe was by far and away his most played. It wasn't even close. Like as soon as she came out, it was like sort of like all the Koreans. Zoe was just like 60% of their games when she ended up coming out. So I mean, yeah.
So he's comfortable
on Zoe.
Yeah,
there you go.
But before that, RJ, he was one of the first players I casted in amateur back in 2015, I believe, 2015, around that time frame. So he's been playing and grinding for a little while. Got the tutelage from LS here, and got his shot. Lost, it made the game losing play. But that's why I think those types of things are always tough.
It's okay, yeah, it's true.
No one is safe. I think you got to that point, and it's not your fault. It's not your fault, but it's like there were so many events leading up to that losing point, right? That's why I'm a little flustered, because I think you could look at Wiggly and a couple of like multiple engages that were just like, what is happening here? What are you doing?
God, there was a couple
multiple times on Samira where like goes right on over all the Samira rocks and all of the Talia rocks and dies. Like, so I think there are a couple of things before you get to the moment where RJ dies. I do recognize I am defending him a little bit more than usual than I normally would. I just wanted to get your perspective on that, because it feels like, yes, everyone can see this play happen, therefore CLG lost, but there were so many steps before that.
Oh yeah. There's like obviously the big narrative from like all the Pobelter fans, right? That he sucks on like Twitter and like Reddit and whatnot, even though he's probably might just be their best performing member in both of those games. Like even though he solo lost the game, he might just be. Yeah, I think he is. I think he's just the best performing member.
I think the Zoe game was
2 games.
The Zoe game for sure. Like I felt like he was the one that was making the plays that got them ahead. At least.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm actually in a weird turn of events. I actually feel like CLG is middle of the pack right now, over some of these other teams, despite the 0-3 record, and that's a really weird thing to say.
I mean, I just have no faith in them actually winning these games. Like, I just don't know.
I don't either, Dom, but come on.
Like, so then how are they middle of, like, they're middle of the pack in terms of gameplay, but like at the end of the day, you gotta fucking win. Like,
No, Faith. Come on. It's
Okay,
fine.
okay, true.
They're gonna be all right. Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I thought you were on T1 now, but I guess you know, I guess it's
still
still CLG
siphoning that
bias
Madison
or what?
Square Garden money. Man, let's take a look at. I got one message. And we have to hit this team up just because we've had four episodes of Facecheck, and we have yet to talk about this team, and it is Dignitas. We have not talked Dignitas. I believe this fan probably drank the Kool-Aid of the very, very nice looking and sounding video that was put out by Dignitas, by Bakery, and by Michael Prindville about, oh yes, we clear that we found our leader in Joshy Boy and Afromoo, and they're sitting at 1 and 2. They're able to get a win. Soy Luigi on the board early, so there's no memes off of that. But
Wait,
what are our thoughts and early impressions of Dignitas?
Did they beat CLG or who did they beat?
The thing about Dignitas is Afromoo could be replaced and no one would notice.
Okay.
That's just like that. I mean, that's just the level of play that he has right now. He could be replaced and no one would notice. You know, and it's actually like, it's almost weird. I feel like he's entered the realm of who the hell was that support player, man? He was in LCS for like 6 years and literally like no branding whatsoever. And obviously
Hakuho, maybe?
1 point. Yeah, Hakuho. Jesus. I don't what even happened to that guy?
Hakuho's in the amateur circuit,
by the way.
He's in the amateur circuit, I believe.
He's in the amateur circuit. Okay.
Yeah,
but
they had a team called like
Afromoo...
Not Pros or Former Pros or some meme like that. They're one of the teams.
No, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing. If Afromoo went teamless, I don't think there's any way he gets back on a team in LCS.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, like, I think you take like a promising rookie over him.
Right.
I would take Puma over him,
so,
somebody like that.
So I think this is the reality of Dignitas right now, where it's very, very worrying for the team overall. The team, I mean, I think it has by far and away the weakest roster, like pound for pound, compared to every other roster in the league, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And like obviously we saw the LCS teams petitioned for import, right, removal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is Dignitas like spearheading that? Because that would maybe make a lot of sense, but I'm not totally sure what's going on there. And also, I mean, in the games, right, Dardoch, he's been playing reasonably well considering everything that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, like he lost jungle to the Krugs, but I mean, we'll let it pass, you know, dude.
Oh, I didn't see the game. I didn't. Yeah. Oh. I saw the tweets and stuff. I didn't get to see that game. What?
Oh no, he had Smite up in the. Oh no, I mean, he just had Smite up and the Krugs just beat his ass. Like it was fucked up. You should have seen like what happened in the game. I've never seen anything like it. What happened was one of the Krugs actually like grabbed him from the back and like tied his arms back, and the other Krug just started like punching him in the face and shit, and then he just ended up just dying like to both of them, and then the fucking Krugs actually ended up being the victor of the game. So it was insane. I've never seen anything like it.
That's really good. All right, okay. I did not see that game. I mean, but throughout the lock-in tournament, the games that I did see so far in obviously spring, I mean, Dardoch was the only one that was remotely seemingly standing out. I think like to a moderate level, and like while there's like new players on the team and whatnot, I think that Dignitas is destined to probably just eventually fall to bottom 2. I don't think there's really anything salvaging that.
Right.
I mean, this team is going to be. I think that this is the worst team in LCS. Like I think that they will probably be 10th. And the thing that kind of scares me is Dardoch does this thing when he plays on bad teams where he just starts going for like crazier and crazier picks. Because he just has like no confidence in his teammates, and it feels like we're already there even in week 1 with Dardoch, where like when he started off he was playing like pretty much meta. He was playing what everyone else is playing. I mean, I think maybe pulled out a cart this game, but that's not like super crazy. But then this became like he played the Mundo game, which was a little bit weird. He shouldn't have been able to exist in that game. Then he randomly got 3 kills. Still didn't matter. He ended up not doing much with that. And then now he has the Rengar game, where the Rengar game doesn't really make sense there at all. Like I would not want to play, like, I mean, I guess Rengar into Talia in isolation is not the worst matchup in the world, right? Like, you're playing against something that should be relatively squishy, and you're an assassin. Like, I understand that, but when you're
everything else is bad, though.
Yeah, I mean, sorry. Yeah, exactly. Everything else is terrible. Like, I would not want to be playing a Rengar game into set mid, Renekton top. Like, Renekton top, you could just never kill as Rengar, it feels like. It feels like if you gank Renekton top, you get 1v2'd most of the time. But, can you hear me? Something happened.
dGon? Uh-oh, dGon's dead.
Oh, dGon's DC
Dom,
or
it's
something?
just me and you. I mean, well, this
All
is
right.
what I mean, this is... He
It's
defended
okay.
people a little bit
Look,
too much.
Look, I remember what Loco said,
Contracted something. This is why I'm wearing my mask.
User in our channel timed out. Okay, just
Yeah, all right. I didn't.
Anyways.
Joined.
But my point is, like, these are not good games for the picks, and it feels like he's essentially picking like he's in solo queue and picking to look good instead of picking to actually, like, win the game.
Well, I mean, I think, like, yeah, Dardoch might just continue to try random stuff. I mean, if he doesn't implode, that's going to be impressive. But so far, I mean, I think that his play, like, even when so many things are going wrong, he seems to still be attempting to play, like, relatively standard without super insane variance, at least so far. I didn't catch the Rengar game, so I don't know what happened, obviously, in that regard. I completely agree with you that they are 10th bound. I don't think there's anything preventing this team from being 10th bound. I don't think that they're ever going to look to try to get some player or whatnot to bring into the team or, like, change things. That just doesn't make any sense. So
I mean, it doesn't look like they have money. Like, who are they?
That might be right. That might be. I mean, they might have mouse pads. I mean, who knows? But for 9th and 8th, following them, I mean, who is down there right now? Because it actually really does look like it's
like
somewhere
CLG,
between. Yeah, it's somewhere between CLG, TSM,
Dignitas,
and I guess. Well, yeah, CLG, TSM, Dignitas,
and probably Golden
like,
Guardians, right?
Golden Guardians, yeah, I think that's probably just the bottom 4.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very big fall from that's awful. It's a very big fall from grace.
Yeah, I saw something on Reddit that actually put me in nostalgia mode, where they said, like, coming into LCS, the first 3 teams that qualified to LCS ever were TSM, CLG, and Dignitas. They were like the mainstays.
Oh man, United and rivalry at the bottom.
And now they're probably the 3 worst teams in the league. That's so crazy.
That is that's definitely something else. The teams with numbers in their name are at first and second, so that's pretty good.
Holy shit! Wait, that's actually. I mean, I normally hated numbers in the name. I don't know how you feel about that concept in general, but I always felt it looked like kind of cringy.
It doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
for
C9
teams
is
it's different.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for team names it's different. Just like players that have numbers in the name and stuff.
Oh yeah. I agree with that. Numbers in the name, I think, is not. That's definitely not ideal.
Sorry, Steve. Steve 112 or Liquid 112.
Oh, Lee. He's back. He just left us.
He's back. I mean, he's a voice now. I mean, it's not.
I'm the voice. D back, baby.
Wait, did you just DC or what happened here?
Yeah, that was me. My internet dropped. Sorry, everybody. But bam, production.
That's actually sick though. Joe was able to take your camera.
Yeah, that
off.
was pretty good.
I don't know. That was honestly,
that was good.
LCS should probably hit up Joe. That's all I'm saying. It'd be a banger. One thing I wanted to say, since we were talking about Dignitas, was I just remember people really didn't understand one of the points we had in one of our shows. I think it was the second episode where we talked about how NA fans were too harsh on promising rookies, and we were speaking about people like Niles and Revenge.
Right.
And one of the main people that people compared it to was Saligo, when Saligo joined 100 Thieves, and I think it was 2019 when he joined, and he was one of the worst players in the league. I would say that this is just a perfect example of what the difference between a promising rookie is and what the difference between a rookie that comes in that just looks like they're never going to be top tier. And Saligo just embodies that, where it's he never really loses the game by himself. I guess he's okay, but he doesn't do anything really productive to win. And this is somebody who's now in his 3rd year of his career as a pro player. And I feel like once you get to that point, the whole oh, you're a young player, whatever, it doesn't really work for me anymore, because we've seen people that, were playing in wildcard regions. For example, Closer, he was playing in a wildcard region while FBI was playing in a wildcard region when Saligo was getting shots in LCS. And you could see that these players have became some of the better players in their position. So I feel like there's players that you can tell have the promise, and that they have high highs and low lows. And that to me means that you're promising. It's okay, there's some things that you can clean up, but if you're given the advantage, you have the ability to shit on anyone. And I just don't see that from Saligo. I'd even be more hyped about RJS based on his showing than Saligo, because I feel like RJS, you could see the moments where he threw the game. But if you just, I know it's hard to do, but if you just subtract those from your memory, you're okay, well, in that third game against TSM, he's actually just outlaning Power of Evil, considering matchup and everything. He's ahead. He gets the kill when people come to his lane. He's landing bubbles. He's hitting poke. Like, he's doing things that are putting his team in a position to win. And I just don't see Soligo doing that for Dignitas, which is part of the reason why I feel like they're just going to be a bottom team, is they just have a team full of like role players, it feels like. Like, who is the player that's going to pop off? It's the jungler, sure. But the jungle needs setup. And this kind of ties into one of my biggest issues with how TSM plays in general, is it feels like they don't care about their jungler. They just don't set him up for success in terms of draft at all. And it really just makes it unplayable for somebody in that position. And right now, obviously on this patch, jungle is considered a pretty strong role in professional play. And you need to be willing, like if you're going to first pick Talia, if you're going to early pick Nidalee, like all these types of picks, you need to have your laners pick things that play around that. But it feels like TSM is completely unable to do that. And to just like end the Dignitas segment, I don't think that Dardoch's laners will ever be able to set him up to really pop off, because I don't think that they can play the champions and like get leads. Like, I don't think they can just play a prio lane.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Can they play a prio lane and actually, can they play a prio lane against a good team and actually get prio? If you put Dignitas's bot lane, you give them a lane that should have prio throughout like most of the lane phase. You put them against 100 Thieves, you put them against C9, you put them against CL. Will they ever be able to win those lanes? I don't think so. And that's like the issue with Dignitas, is like, then your jungler, if he's your star player, doesn't get a chance to shine.
I would push back a little bit on just Soligo's former teammate or current teammate, and they were formerly teammates over at 100 Thieves Academy with Fake God. I mean, in this week, he was able to outplay the 2-man tower dive on Someday, where, yes, they messed it up, but able to find buy time, able to make good out of nothing. And I think Fake God has started to make those types of plays. I agree with you on Soligo. Sorry, the Soligo Watch fans, you guys are real ones if you remember that one. But we've now had a lot of watching Soligo, and Maxi Boy has to go prove it. And it's not going to be easy, especially given the fact that, as you said, RJ's burst on the scene, and high highs, low lows, you take that every time. So I just want to push back a little bit on the Fake God thing there.
Well, I think that just his pick already kind of shows his mentality. I feel like Fake God is picking things to not get destroyed rather than like trying to get advantages from draft. Like, if he's getting counter pick on a Renekton, there are things that you could play to beat a Renekton in lane. Like, it's not something where you just have, where it's like, oh, they pick Renekton and you're just forced to go Gragas and you just have to neutralize. So I feel like he like, at least the team doesn't have confidence in him. Maybe the coaching staff, maybe he doesn't have confidence. It doesn't seem like he's able to play the picks to actually like win lane. Like, let's say Alfari blind picks a Kennen or something like that. Do you think that he's going to play the Aurelia like Revenges and actually be able to solo kill him? I just don't see him being capable of that as a player. It seems like he's going to be like the standard weak side top laner, where they either take him like a bruiser or a tank early that he's able to just like lane with and he doesn't need help on, or he's going to be just picking stable picks to neutralize the opponent rather than actually picking to beat him.
Yeah, well, there you go. LS, did you thoughts there on Dignitas to close things out before we move on?
No, I mean, I agree with the sentiment about Soligo. I think that the most important thing to measure in a player at any point whenever they're playing is intention. And if intention is absent, then especially for an extended period of time, it's unlikely he's going to find any aid to magically get better as a player. And so I mean, I don't have any faith in that regard. The Fake God stuff, I guess I continue to just reserve comments, but I share the same sentiment with Dom that it's a sinking ship for Dardoch, because he's tasked with an impossible position in the sense that he has to shine despite all of his laners just pretty much losing. And that's a hard thing. I mean, Closer did it, right, at one point in North America. So, I mean, I guess it's possible, but it's definitely it's a tall ask.
Yeah, and I feel like Dardoch doesn't have like the mental for it. Like, you can already tell that the reason to me that he's picking things like Mundo and Rengar and these types of picks is he wants something that, like, if the fucking stars align in game and he gets all the advantages he needs, he can just carry that shit 1v9. Like, those are not picks you pick if you have confidence in your teammates. Right. I mean, they're both champions that like can hit a break point. Let's say you're playing Mundo into a bunch of a bunch of AP champions, you can get to that like unkillable status and actually like 1v9 the game alone. Rengar's the same type of champion in a different way, where you don't really 1v9 the game by like tanking and just being unkillable. You 1v9 the game by just having so much threat with your ultimate. You ulti, and then the whole team has to like collapse on top of each other because you can just one-shot somebody at any point. Like those types of picks, I feel like kind of show a mentality of, hey, if I play like standard jungler versus standard jungler, if we play Olaf into Udyr, we lose. If we play Talia into Hecarim or something, we're probably just going to lose because I'm never going to get the chance to affect the game. So I don't know. At least that's my take.
I've heard him
when I
say
see
those types of things before, like in the past, where it's like, what am I supposed to do? All my lanes are losing. And in this case, he'd be fully right, wouldn't he? All right, let's move on to our tweet of the week. We spent a lot of time muddled in the middle with FlyQuest, Dignitas, Golden Guardians, Immortals, and TSM all sitting at 1 and 2, and then LS's pick with the highest upside, CLG at 0 and 3. But let's take a look at something that the leader of North America, the newly crowned leader of North America, tweeted out himself on Team Liquid. This was CoreJJ. He just made a simple tweet. It was 2020 League is stronger than 2021 League. And I think a simple, straightforward statement, given the fact that we had so many superstars leave, infrastructure change,
Yes.
and it was what we thought was going to happen. We saw lock in. We maybe had some promising hype there. We've been pushed by the LCS narrative, which is like made by many. Here we go. A bunch of rookies can step up into the place. They have, and the king has weighed in. He said last year was better.
Yeah, I mean, I remember saying this was episode 1 where I said it, that I felt like this was the first time I ever watched NA, and it felt like a wild card, or it felt, it didn't feel right watching NA this time around. From the drafting patterns being like either mimicking almost like watching like rats in a maze, you know, like just copying like patterns on a very simplistic level, and just watching like those deviations play out, to the awful abysmal laning phases, to the constant types of like super rookie cookie cutter mistakes constantly happening. There's a couple of upsides with newcomers that have entered the league, but the reality is that it seems like the overall level of play has gone down, and the roster shuffles, Bjergsen leaving, other things that are just going on. I felt very early on.
Doublelift leaving? Never mind.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I mean, he's still what? I mean, you know, the other thing here though is like, it just feels like the region. Last year, the bottom standings were really rough already, and it feels like this year it just added on to the bottom standings. It feels like we got more bottom standing teams than we got like middle of the pack or upper so far. And with one of the top teams, literally one of the teams that went to Worlds, just falling off so much. FlyQuest, you know, losing its entire roster. I mean, I guess they have a shuffle with 100 Thieves. You know, in terms of 100 Thieves is now up there on top. Things are worrisome for North America.
I'm not sure if I completely
the LCS import thing, right? Yeah. What's going to happen with that?
We'll get into that. Dom, make your point, and then let's dive.
So I'm not sure if 2021 is weaker than 2020. I think that maybe like our 2021 spring was weaker than 2020 summer. But I think that last spring was pretty much Cloud9 dominating everyone, and it felt like no one was even like close to good. I would say from the perspective of like, maybe if you average out the skill levels of all teams, right, you were to assign a number that was associated with the overall skill level of the team, like maybe that average number would be lower this year than last year. But what I would say is that I feel like we have 3 teams that actually can be potentially good. Like it feels like TL. Like, because you got to remember in spring last year, it was EG, FlyQuest, and Cloud9. Those were the 3 best teams in the league. And FlyQuest and EG just never felt that good. It felt like C9 could just beat them like no matter what they did. I'd say that now we should have a better like tier 1 of teams. Like I'd say that the overall like ratings of that Cloud9 100 Thieves TL it should be higher than the top 3 of last year. So it's like. At least in spring. So for me, I'm not completely sold that the league is just weaker. I think that maybe there's more weaker teams, but I think that the top teams
a lot more
top
heavy. Yes, it's a lot more top heavy. I think that Cloud9 and Team Liquid are probably going to make a legitimate run for being like the strongest representation that NA has had. Whereas last year, it felt like NA was sending 3 third seeds to Worlds, or like because TSM Cinderella story, in order to get into Worlds, and how close all of the games were. It really didn't feel like there was that much difference between the seeds that were going into Worlds. And so that was really, kind of sad. And the other thing about NA is when we get into it, the LCS import rule, if that ends up getting lifted, obviously there's a lot of controversy around it right now. The issue is that if the bottom teams just continue to keep getting worse and the middle of the pack teams continue to get worse, and there's no other systematic foundation changes that happen within the league, then NA is just going to keep devouring itself, and it'll become more and more and more top heavy. And I feel like I've seen this identical pattern take place in other esports, like in StarCraft. It almost looks identical to the timeline that ended up happening in NA.
I mean, I just feel like if the top teams are better, I think that will just eventually just matter more for the region, because at the end of the day, sure, we might get more blowouts in LCS, and maybe LCS won't be as entertaining because of that. But I think that the number one thing that NA needs in order to get more hype and people to care more about the region is a good international performance. And when I look at the top teams here, especially TL, I feel like just from a roster standpoint, right? Like we saw how bad they were in spring last year. They're already looking a lot better than they were. I feel like a team that has players like CoreJJ, Alfari, I think Tactical is really promising. I think Jensen is solid. I think Santorin is solid. I feel like that team can definitely do more damage internationally from a roster perspective, right, assuming that they're still able to continue progression throughout the year. And I trust that a team like that can continue progression because of like the people that are on it. So for me, it's sure, like we might get more blowouts, but then what I'm hoping happens is like, if we're going to be doing these like rookie, like it almost feels like some of these are like tryout teams, like Niles and Revenge. Like let's say we get like a couple good rookies here, and then next year we bring in a couple more good rookies, and like, yes, the ones that don't make it get cut out, and then we get in like Kenvi and players like that that could be promising from Academy. Like maybe Poom continues improving and he ends up on one of these teams. I feel like there is like a path to at least have some progression, whereas before, sure, our bottom teams were better, but our bottom teams had players on it that were like seasoned veterans that weren't getting any better.
I have two points to this. One, I think you bring up a fantastic point I had never thought of before. The last time I felt very good about the LCS was CLG going to MSI and performing well, and then coming back to NA and having the MSI like hangover, but still like that whole progression felt really good.
I felt like C9 getting to semifinals at Worlds in 2018 was a big breakthrough for NA, beating a Korean team in a best of 5 and then getting to semifinals.
That was Afrika, right? They beat Afrika.
Yeah, and Afrika was what? Were they the 1 seed? They were 2 seed, maybe? 1 seed, 2 seed, something like that.
They were 2 seed, I believe.
Right? Okay, sure. Yeah, okay, so they're the 2 seed. So our like 3 seed beat the 2 seed from Korea, or I think maybe C9 was the 2nd seed. Whatever. The point is, I felt like that was actually something that was like an accomplishment, and obviously, like you could say that Afrika. Afrika like imploded, whatever. But the fact that NA actually placed higher than Korea at a world championship was something that no one thought would ever happen. So like I don't think it's as like I think the last 2 years have been really disappointing, but I don't think that we're never going to get out of groups again or something like that.
Okay.
I don't think
I like that. Go ahead, Ellis.
No, I don't think it's impossible for an NA team to eventually get out of groups, right? I don't think that's impossible, but I think that holistically, I think it's going to be very hard to make the overall region shine. Like I think Europe's doing phenomenal, man. Their ERL system and also crazy. The viewership, everything that's going. Holy, I like applaud that so much. That's so awesome to like watch.
Yeah, I love it.
But that's the thing. So solving, right? We've now identified a lot of it. It's like, oh, we need more players, and we kind of understand this year, like, hey, we have some of these bottom teams that are going to have rookies that are trying things out. and have to think differently. But when you think of LEC, when you think of Korea, when you think of ERLs, the fact that they have dedicated leagues to continue to cultivate talent below it, I think kind of is how
helps.
people are able to be forged by the fire when they're thrown in. They're not actually rookies. And so two things here, or two possible solutions. One, do we expand and like deal with the fact that, hey, these 3 or 4 franchises, let's say we go to 14 or something, these franchises are going to be the bottom teams. They're the expansion teams. No one wanted to play on them, so they're going to be the ones that have to uncover the rookies. And now these teams are going to get, and these players are going to get top level, top flight experience.
Right.
Or, kind of what LCS is trying to do right now and what the North American scene is trying to do right now, invest in the challengers circuit, the amateur circuit, where you have people like Kelsey Moser, who's very focused on the scene and reporting and giving it the right attention. You have Clerky, you have Tim Seven Houston. There are people that are focused on that for the growth of the pro scene, but previously people didn't see how it all connected together.
Right.
I don't think expansion is a good idea personally. I think that right now, sure that like if we put in a couple more teams, they're probably just going to continue getting smacked. And I think that it'll just develop. Like LCS will have so many games that will be seemingly unwatchable. Like no one wants to watch TSM CLG. I mean, it's kind of funny because it's TSM CLG. But imagine if you're watching a bunch of TSM CLG without the teams actually having any storylines, and it's like Golden Guardians versus like Envy makes a return or something, and then we get like another Optic, and the teams are just completely terrible. Like it's just gonna be so many games that people are just gonna eventually start tuning out of LCS. I feel like they're on the right track with like the proving grounds and having more amateur teams. Like now it sucks for some of the players, but at least now the amateur teams are actually having people that are like people that were considered good before, or ex LCS players. Now there is some experience that you can gain there, right? Like if you're in the amateur circuit, you have to play against people like Viper, you have to play against people like Anda, you have to play against people like Apollo and Hakuho, and these people that have been in the scene forever. So you get more experience down there. And I think that we just need to see this system like carry out for like a year, 2 years, something like that, and then see what we make of it. Because you got to remember, like with this, like with the tournaments that are going to happen, you're going to have bottom tier like LCS teams, right, competing in these tournaments with like the top tier of amateur, and maybe we can get a couple more talents out of that. Like at least because of that like system, there's going to be some extra like viewership. There's going to be some extra eyes on what happens, because right now no one really watches Academy, dude. Like, right. Man, I've been seeing Academy. It's like 3K viewers. So I'm
trying to,
Yeah, dude, you want to watch some Academy sometime? Now that I'm unbanned from co-streaming, maybe we could get some Academy games in. Who knows?
I mean, I'm trying to
Facecheck Cast
like I'm trying,
Academy. I'm down, dude. Let's do it, and I'll set you both up to be positive about the space, because we can't be pooping on Daddy Riot's official broadcast and content here. Got to be nice.
So I mean, I'm just saying that it's the right track, right? Like we got to see how like they made a change. They made a change to make amateur and Academy and LCS kind of link up a little bit more, like something that is going to be in the same vein as what EU Masters theoretically should be in Europe. And then we got to see what happens out of that and see if there's any talent that cultivates before we start going crazy and be like expanding and dropping import rule. Like just give this fucking a chance is all I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah, and I just want to give a quick shout out to those teams that are doing the tournament. So that would be, Challengers, Uprising, Big League are two there that are doing that. You have orgs like ANU, Barrage NA, EG Prodigies, which is like 100 Thieves Next, Maryville University, they're always there. Sola Fide is probably one of the most stacked rosters with Dokla, Winston, Tuesday, Apollo, and Zazel. And then Winthrop University has been doing pretty well for guys that I'm not familiar with, another school setup there. So just a heads up for those that are wondering like, hey, where the talent pool is, why LEC has been just kind of bursting ahead. I think you take a look at the European regional leagues, as well as the fact that then they come up and they're more aggressive in terms of putting players in, kind of what we're seeing this year from the LCS. So good stuff there. And I feel like, again, we hit this topic a lot, but this time I feel like we did a good job giving a little bit of a twist in terms of solutions this time. All right. So last time I brought this up, we showed CLG and TSM. That was game of the week. This time, let's take a look at the game of the week, Golden Guardians and Immortals. It was universally lauded by everyone on Twitter. What do we think of that matchup that happened there with Immortals and Golden Guardians playing a lot of macro game there?
I mean, unironically, better macro than the CLG TSM game. That's kind of sad to say, but I mean, yeah, the full rookie teams essentially are out macroing CLG and TSM. So I guess we could just start there.
Yeah, no, I mean,
and Arrow are happy boys about how their teams
this
played
game should have been unlosable for Immortals. They lost that Baron. Like Golden Guardians got the Baron cheese off, and then the Baron cheese like blew open the game, and it allowed for them to play the Smoke and Mirrors. And the Smoke and Mirrors game was actually really well played. Like how careful Twisted Fate was going, switching to the yellow trinket so that Niles could also TP. There was a lot of Smoke and Mirrors going on, and it actually reached that point of the game, and I thought that was awesome. But also the meta picks, right? You had Gangplank come out, you had Ivern come out to answer him on R5. You had Twisted Fate there in mid. And the game evolved really well. Immortals did blunder, but that was way more enjoyable to watch than any other game so far. That I mean, at least I felt that way from lock-in till now. That was the most enjoyable game for me.
Yeah, I mean, I love seeing the mind games, right? Like the fake base race into recall when they had Baron was intelligent. It's good to see that. And then also, like, I just felt like they played correctly around the Enchanter top. I mean, essentially that should be the downside of Enchanter's top, right? Like they're better in team fights. They have Moonstone. They have Staff of Flowing Water, etc. But realistically, those champions should not be able to side lane late game versus like the true top laners. I mean, yeah, sometimes they can hold under turret, but it's always something that is something that needs to be considered a weakness. It's like you don't want to actually be pushing your side lanes. Really, you're kind of just catching your side lane, trying to match, and then getting into a team fight. So, yeah, I mean, I think that this was what CLG I think could have done in the TSM game if they played the macro game a little bit better. They could have done this type of style where we actually got to see the 1-3-1 team make the game kind of unplayable for the Enchanter team. It's like once it got to that point where they had the inhibs down, you had TF on the side lane, and then TF was switching to the yellow trinket so GB could help threaten, and then they were like starting Baron, trying to force the enemy team to commit to Baron, and then they're like trying to use the TF ult to pressure towards the base. Like that's what makes playing against like TF and 1-3-1 comps in general so difficult. Is like when you're playing in a game, it feels like it's really the onus is on the opponent to make a mistake, the team that's splitting to make a mistake, rather than it's on you to be able to force anything, because the 4-man or like the 3-man, whatever you end up doing, if it's 1-4, 1-3-1, whatever, they have enough disengage with their own lineup to play around the map. So I mean, I was actually impressed with this game. I think that this was actually Iconic's worst game that I've seen him play. I think that he, like, generally speaking, he's been pretty good. This was the only game where I was like, oh, this is like a rookie game where he just, got outplayed by Xerxes pretty hard in this one. But outside of that, I was pretty okay with the game overall. I mean, I think that this is it's promising at least.
What I liked the most about this matchup was that you could see where either teams were taking advantage of a mistake that a team made and then going back and forth with it. I think it was Destiny who dashed in on Rel at Dragon when clearly everyone was disengaging. And then from that point, Golden Guardians then back in it. They felt like they were in control, and then it was a back and forth, a little too aggressive in the top lane. Then they all die, and then Immortals takes it back. What I wanted to know is, and you touched on it a bit here, was there really nothing that Immortals could do? And I'll set it up for our friends that weren't able to experience this game. I know it sounds weird, Golden Guardians and Immortals, but that was probably the best game for you to watch if you haven't watched it. TF has Destiny, the ult, able to pressure on the top side of the map. Elder Dragon has spawned on the bottom side of the map. And the only person that had TP that could also deal with the only person that could deal with the Twisted Fate was Orianna, who had TP, because IWillDominate again has shielding and is an enchanter. It then takes away your major team fighting ability. Is that the only play? You couldn't just like run in, start Elder Dragon, and then hope that you finish Elder Dragon and get a fight before TF ends the game? Like, because you're right. It did feel like they gave up.
You can't really. I mean, I think that there's so much like base canceling. Obviously, you just have to not let the enemy team get to that point. Like if you're playing against the 1-3-1 comp, generally speaking, there's going to be options to team fight, and there's a point before your inhibs open up where you can actually catch the waves and then force team fights around like Soul. Right. That's why we don't see like as many 1-3-1 comps in general, is because Soul exists. So that's just a win condition that's available like a lot earlier in the game, and it's easier to do, right? Like for example, if you're doing a 1-3-1 comp around Baron, Baron obviously does a lot more damage, takes a lot longer to kill. So your window to kill it is a lot longer than the Soul, which is just a normal dragon where you can burst it in like 5 seconds. If you have if you get all your players there. So I think that I think that Immortals just kind of like ruined their early game, specifically around the Ivern, and that's why they were put in the situation where they couldn't really win.
That's anything to add to that?
I mean, I think, I think Immortals in this game, they seemed indecisive. It sort of actually reminded me of CLG towards the end, where if the Baron Sneak doesn't happen, they're just gonna pile drive through. But they seem to also have a lot of like almost insecurity issues with like the team fights, with not trusting each other on a lot of different things. And then the game just blew open. I mean, there's not really much more to add to it. I mean, Dom really hit the nail on the head with like a lot of different stuff. I mean, obviously, like the dances in the end game and like why it's not feasible and whatnot in relation to Soul. And so 1-3-1 comps are generally they don't really exist the way that they used to back in the day. But I also don't think that it's just Soul. I think that comprehensively the game knowledge of like how to respond or move just to like catch waves and do all these other things is at a point where it's generally harder, but the champions that can really force the issue don't really exist outside of Camille right now. So I mean, there's that.
Yeah. And then I think it kind of has to deal with like the mid laners that are really good, like champions like Azir, Orianna. Even when you see like when people are playing TF, then you see Ryze as like an answer to it a decent amount. I feel like these champions are just better at like 1v1ing the top laner and just being able to hold against the top laner in the side lane, compared to like other things that were good before. So like when there was more LeBlanc, when there was more Zoe champions like this, you can abuse them more in the side lane than you can these other ones. So yeah, I think that it's also just champion viability and what's strong in different roles.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Well, again, putting it on full display this week, Golden Guardians and Immortals. Go watch that one. Okay, so with that,
when do we get to flame TSM, man? That's all I'm waiting for.
All right, let's bring it on. That's what I was going to say before we close things out. How can we not touch on the multi-million-dollar disaster that is TSM right now? TSM currently sitting 1-2. We touched on them a little bit in their game of the week. There it is. A lot of money, not a lot of wins. They all step on a blast cone and go different directions. Please watch that moment from CLG versus TSM. It was hilarious until CLG threw it. Thoughts here on TSM's mess. How do you fix it? Where do you start? And we'll start with you, LS.
I mean, I'll just read my tweets that I made. We can't pull them up. I mean, I feel like this is my eulogy here, okay? But I need to give here. So I ended up tweeting yesterday. I said TSM are quite literally a bottom tier team at the minute, and there's no easy fixing it, especially not with the 5 weeks left, because you're playing 3 game days, and then you probably have 3 scrim days, right? So there's just not a lot of time left to fix this, and I think that's a lot of added pressure. Their laning phases, overall individual gameplay ideas, player by player, drafting are all insanely bad, and TSM has some of the worst drafts ever. But this is several times now that they got away with stealing the Mona Lisa. And obviously I'm referring to in the lock-in tournament, they were destined to lose in 2 of those games, and they got away with murder. It was
Yeah.
I don't know, it's like OJ Simpson or something. I mean, TSM really just I don't know what's going on, but they've consistently been in a losing position game states for a long time. It reminds me of summer where they also committed robberies, mostly on the back of Bjergsen to win games, which is what they did with their Cinderella stories. And the reason that I'm doubtful that they can improve is because how can they realistically? Intent's absent in their gameplay. I mentioned this earlier on. That intent is where you would see coaching or other things take effect. Even if you see mechanical execution blunder, or you see them botch something, right, on like a mechanical level or like a very like small micro macro type thing with like, coordination between one another inside of a team fight, that's not there either. There's no fucking intent. So everything's totally clueless. And the reason that I'm also not optimistic that anything can change is because that I perceive it that Bjergsen was always the coach anyway. But it's also unfair to blame him because he's put into an impossible position. He's put with a roster that isn't, I mean, some people will say that it's strong. I don't think that it's as strong as some of the other rosters in LCS. But then on top of that, he never had anyone to really help him. So he just moves over into a different titled position. And the big question there, or the big ask is, what type of stuff can he do now that he's not allocating a lot of time towards playing the game and can instead just allocate it towards coaching the game, right? But it's coming off of something that's almost an experience because he never had anything to learn off of, right? He himself was his best teacher coach. From everything that we know, right? Yeah, he was his own best coach. And I mentioned in closing that he was NA's far and away best player for so long, carried so many iterations of the team on his back through sheer power of his gameplay and finding ways to win where they didn't belong. But now he's absent in the actual game, but the fundamental problems that have plagued the team for years continues to remain. And then when we get tidbits from like Double Lift Stream and these other things, it almost seems like they're absent-minded in the sense that like Double Lift will comment that Bjerg historically had a lot of say in draft, right? But Summer Split, they had some really bad drafts. Like, do you remember the
they would draft the three
AP,
losing lanes.
The three losing lanes, or like the all AP almost team compositions and like other stuff that was just really out there. But then the other thing about the drafts is, and I think a lot of people don't understand when I make these comments, you can end up with a winning draft or a losing draft, but there's also the phase in which it occurs that speaks volumes to what the hell are you doing? Was it TSM that did the R4 Leona? When you're always when you're always just counterpitting support, right? Yeah. You should just pick mid because the enemy team has already shown their hand, and there is no mid lane. There's no mid laner that can come in on R5 that is somehow influenced by B4 B5 enemy bot lane. But the enemy bot lane still has to come in. There's no mid laner currently in the meta that can account for a range of champions that magically comes in bot lane and somehow influences the draft.
Was that the R5 Corki?
That was the Corki. There's no mid laner that accounts for like the range merging that the enemy team could come up with. And so that's a super weird thing. But then also, what is the fetish with Leona, man? It's almost like
isn't that a sword art champion though? That's like a sword art specialty.
It's absolutely a sword art champion.
Yeah. I think he's probably just falling back on that. He's seeing like, okay, like I'm probably the best player on this team. I will sacrifice to, and I can do anything on the Leona, right? Like I think that has to be part of the conversation here, right?
So I mean, where I would like to jump in is like, where do you attack this to fix it? And I feel like the easiest way to fix it is to just like change the team mentality with drafting. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen 11.4, 11.5 once jungle nerfs come in, but it's very clear going around the world that the best way to succeed right now is drafting around your jungler. So the biggest mistake that I see TSM consistently make is like in their first three, they draft a jungler that needs setup. They draft a Talia, a Nidalee, something like that. And they pair that with things that make the game unplayable, right? So I think a good way to compare this is look at 100 Thieves drafts when they have closer. And I think that Spica is a completely capable player mechanically to play every pick you need in a carry jungle meta. I don't think that's the issue at all. Yeah. So when you see 100 Thieves, right? They first pick Talia. What are their next two picks? They grab Set, which is flex mid support, and they grab Renekton. Two champions that can set him up. And they end up putting Set mid, Renekton top, both with Atalia, so there's constant threat. that you can gank those lanes, that you can pressure those lanes. You look at how Spica has to play Talia. They're like, all right, you got your Talia, Spica. What's your mid laner? Corki. What the fuck? Corki doesn't exist until 20 minutes, right? Corki doesn't exist until 20 minutes. So why are you drafting those types of picks with a Talia? Like, if you don't want to play Talia, then ban that in the draft, and you can play things that are much more focused on full clearing, and you can back them with picks that support that. Sure, you had just to finish my point, like if you're gonna draft like an Orianna like every game for PoE, sure, that's fine. Then you need to be banning Talia instead of like Udyr or Olaf, and then you opt into the Udyr Olaf matchup with an Orianna supporting that pick. It feels like their soul lane picks and their jungle picks are completely like independent of each other. But yeah, go for it.
The other thing is like the tidbits that we get from like Double Lift Stream, right? A lot of like the conversation, it ends up climaxing at what is currently perceived as like the best, or talking about like what could be better in the moment, right? In like present day, modern day. There's very little language that talks about future or change. But realistically, at any given point, the meta is not what the meta is. It's whatever counters the meta. That in and of itself is absent globally. That has nothing to do with just NA as like a region, right? That's just a concept that supersedes any regional league right now. But then in addition to that, I'm beginning to wonder if maybe TSM's drafts are dwarfed by the fact that they were always just so good that they actually don't realize maybe how bad some of the stuff really was. Do you know what I mean? Like if you just keep winning, you can't really
you're creating those bad habits and you don't know what the meta is.
Worlds was a huge reality check, right? Like that's when they started drafting. They're like, okay, we're going for the 3-lane no prio comp with Zillion and Nidalee. Like, let's fucking get it. And then just get smacked in lane. Spica has like 7 people invading like his fucking own jungle every single time. So it's like, I don't even know. I feel like that had to have been the reality check.
So the other thing about it is therein lies the problem as well, where like we're talking about fixing it. I mean, it's not just drafting. I mean, no one's laning well. You can go into these games and pro view and just see that no one is laning well whatsoever, and that's a hard thing to do to get a player to fundamentally play lane different that can also then play towards a draft differently. And that these are too many problems for one person to just sort of like take on. So I don't know what TSM's solution is other than just like playing better on the day, and trying to like RNG wins and whatnot. But I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And then the other thing on the topic of draft is so convoluted. Teams end up with good drafts and bad drafts all the time. But draft in and of itself is not a skill set that pertains necessarily to the league, right? It's derived from card games. Yeah. Even TFT in a sense is sort of like a card game, knowing when and where to slot in certain picks and determine various ranges that opponents might follow up with further down the line, and how a B1 pick can have complications on B4 B5 because it didn't account for various ranges that can come in on R3 or R4. And these are weird things for individual players that only spend their time playing League of Legends and focusing on winning their own lane and, winning LCS titles to actually think about. And I don't know where you go off and start thinking about these things other than just trying to copy paste YouTube videos, which is not a viable application of that.
Yeah.
I think you dumb it down to like the ultimate fucking level where you're like, if we had like, it was like, what are the main champions that are going to come through in a draft? Like we normally are seeing trade-offs of like the 4 major junglers on these next couple patches. So it's going to be Pantheon, Udyr, Olaf, and Talia. These are almost always picked in like the first phase. So when we get Talia, we are 100% going to pick it with some type of CC mid, or CC top, with the CC support. And if we pick Olaf or Udyr, if that's what's left up to us in the draft, then we're going with control mage with push mid. We're going with an Orianna, a Azir, something like that. If we get the Pantheon, then we're going with something like a Syndra. Like you just go for like these little like mini pairs, and you just slot. And then you just slot those into the draft. So like even if the rest of the draft is horrible, you can at least have something to play off of. They're like, oh well. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do in this top lane matchup or bot lane matchup, but the jungler knows if I find a good timing to go mid and I flash on him, I have some follow-up, we can do something there.
Yeah. Well, a lot to talk about here in TSM in the next coming weeks because they got to fix it. And I really love your point there at the end there, LS, where it was, hey, Bjergsen probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest player in North America, but how much drafting, how much card game experience does he have to do, and how much of his whole career was based off the fact that he was able to cover up a lot of the mistakes of TSM iterations in the past. All right, guys, it is 10:46 here in California, which means Ellis has to go. He's got a busy day, which means we're going to call it here for this episode of Facecheck. Make sure to head on over to VENN Esports, like, subscribe, support, putting out more content there. You get some of the clips and the hot takes of this episode. And of course, you can catch us here next week around the same time. We're going to chat about it. But again, next.
What happened to dGon? Did he just die? All right. Well, dGon just left. All right. So I guess I'll sign it out. Hey, thank you guys for watching Facecheck.
We'll keep you all in the loop. Thanks.
Just like CLG.
Holy shit. Okay. All right. Well, this will be fun for the editors.
Hello?
Are we still live? What's happening?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks everyone. Bye. Hey, thanks for watching VENN Esports. Make sure to hit that subscribe button below and explore our other videos. In fact, click, 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 click on the ones on the screen right now. Right now. Do it.